Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, the Ethics Committee in Parliament has found the former Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, guilty of dereliction of duties and of misleading Parliament. And it's ordered that she apologize and be reprimanded by the National Assembly. The co-chair of the Joint Committee on Ethics and Members' Interests, Hendrik Britz, joins us tonight. Also on the show, the DA's Karabo Khakhau, who laid the complaint against Nkabane, will respond to these sanctions by the committee. And then later, we speak to the EFF's Secretary General, Marshal Dlamini, about the ad hoc committee and the ad comments Julius Malema made about the KZN Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. But first, the comment. So, the former Higher Education Minister, Nobuhle Nkabane, has been found guilty of gross misconduct by Parliament's Ethics Committee. This is after it determined that she misled lawmakers and breached the Executive Code of Ethics. Remember, the findings follow that complaint that was launched by the DA's MP Karabo Khakhau, who serves on the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. So, this probe has found that Nkabane failed to exercise proper oversight in the appointment of SETA board chairs and allowed her advisor to handle the recruitment and selection panel process. That committee has now ordered that Nkabane issue a formal public apology and to be formally reprimanded by the National Assembly for failing to exercise due care in the process of appointing the SETA board chairpersons. Now, let's just remind you of how we got here and give you some context. So let's take a few steps back. So, the former Minister Nkabane appointed board chairpersons of SETAs. Remember that? The list of her appointments was leaked, revealing that she also appointed Gwede Mantashe's son and Mantashe's advisor as board chairpersons of the two SETAs, which was quite curious because she worked closely with Gwede Mantashe before becoming Higher Education Minister. In fact, at some point, she was Mantashe's deputy at Mineral Resources, and after being promoted to Minister of Higher Education, she then appointed Mantashe's son and advisors as board chair. Is that a coincidence? Well, probably, or probably not. But she tried to defend the appointments, but when she was asked tough questions about them in Parliament, she withdrew them together with other board chair positions. But she wasn't off the hook just yet. Parliament wanted to know who advised her to make such appointments, and she claimed it was an independent panel. She was asked for the names of the independent panel members, and she was refusing to disclose them until pressure mounted. Remember this?
So it is not compulsory for me to disclose the independent assessor, the independent panel that is assisting the minister. I'll first find out from them, get consent, if they are happy that I disclose their names. I cannot just come here and disclose information. I need to comply with the relevant legislation. I'm not going to respond to yes or no, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the belligerent attitude she shows towards Parliament. In fact, it was actually a legal opinion that advised her to release the names. Do you remember this moment when she appeared in Parliament?
In your own view, Minister, what makes a person credible? When you say this one, Tebogo chair, is credible or is not credible, what makes him credible in your own view? Minister?
What makes a person credible, Chair, is exactly how it is defined when you Google. By encyclopedia, you'll see what it means. It's exactly that.
You are not going to answer us. You are not going to answer us, Minister.
I've responded, Chairperson.
That's what happened in Parliament. Can you believe it? Now, South Africans and even the President were clearly disappointed by her behavior. The President even called her out and asked her to explain herself. But when she finally disclosed the list of independent panel members, it turned out not to be an independent panel. Because among the names are Department of Higher Education staff members, which raised the question about their independence. And remember, the minister claimed that the chair of the so-called independent inquiry was Advocate Terry Mutau, except that it was a lie. Because Advocate Mutau came out publicly to say he didn't chair the panel, as claimed by the minister. He said the minister intended to appoint him as the chair of the committee, but that just simply never materialized. So he was surprised that suddenly the minister is including his name on the list of panel members. So she was forced to apologize publicly to Advocate Mutau because she was caught lying and exposed. So she had misrepresented Advocate Mutau's role because she could clearly see that without the advocate's name, that panel was never going to pass the test of independence. Even her own chief of staff, if you remember, whose name was included on the list of the panel, distanced herself and said, they were not part of that panel. So the reality is that there was clearly no panel here. We were lied to. And if there was, there would have been meetings. There would have been minutes of those meetings. The minister would have also, in fact, told us the names of the people who were on that panel. And then you had the ANC Secretary General entering the fray, trying to defend the minister. This is what Fikile Mbalula said at the time.
Crucially, when appearing before Parliament, the minister clearly stated that Advocate Mutau had not attended any of the panel's meetings. This is a decisive piece of information which directly rebuts any allegation of deceit or misrepresentation. Had the minister intended to fabricate or exaggerate Advocate Mutau's role, she would not have made this transparent and clarifying statement. This detail proves that there was no intent to mislead Parliament and certainly no malice. Upon becoming aware of the error, the minister promptly apologized to Parliament and issued a formal written apology to Advocate Mutau, personally and in public, acknowledging the mistake and correcting the record.
That's what the ANC said about the minister at the time. And believe it or not, the former minister has been appointed the ANC's deputy chief whip in Parliament. So the question we're asking you tonight is, given what the minister is found guilty of, this former minister, are you satisfied with the sanction, especially given that President Cyril Ramaphosa already took action against her? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note right now on 0605712664. Remember to tell us your name and your surname and where you're sending that voice note from. And please keep it at 30 seconds. Alternatively, you can send us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. All right, let's start this conversation now with the joint co-chair, Hendrik Britz of that ethics committee, who joins us now via Zoom. Thank you so much for making time for us. Mr. Britz, good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers as well.
So how did the former minister justify how she handled this entire matter?
Well, listening to the introduction, it is quite correct what you've stated. In her defense, she blamed her advisor, a certain Mr. Solani, for the whole process and all the trouble that crept in with the process. So she initially wanted to pass the buck, so to speak, to her advisor. But when the committee started investigating the complaint against her, it became clear that this was a question of a former minister, she was minister at that stage, who indeed tried to mislead Parliament and to a certain extent the committee itself. And it became clear that this was a classic case where the former minister attempted to pass her responsibilities to one of her advisors in her department.
Okay, but have have you heard from the advisor to corroborate what the minister says? And I'm asking this question because she has lied before about the role of an advisor in this entire process. She had said that Advocate Mutau was the chair of that independent inquiry until Advocate Mutau came out publicly to say he didn't chair that panel as claimed by the minister. And she had to apologize to him. So what are the chances that she is doing the same with this advisor now?
Well, that's an open question. It was not necessarily during the investigation phase of this complaint to get a statement from her advisor, because the facts were quite clear-cut. And based on the evidence that was placed before us, it was, or the committee was placed in a situation we could have made a ruling, which we did.
Okay, so you found that she misled lawmakers and breached the executive code of ethics. She failed to exercise proper oversight in the appointment of these SETA board chairs and allowed her advisor to handle this recruitment and selection panel process as she has explained. I mean, if really that was the case, because we just never know, but how seriously as the committee do you view these findings?
Well, this is very serious. Especially taking into account that it is a member of the executive who is fulfilling her constitutional and legislative role and responsibilities, and who, in fact, did not perform in terms of her constitutional duties. One aspect that I want to highlight, she was found in transgression of section 51C and 51E of the code, which reads that a member must act on all occasions in accordance with the public trust placed in her and maintain public confidence and trust in the integrity of Parliament, and thereby engender the respect and confidence that society needs to have in Parliament as a representative institution. So that was the two sections that she was found guilty of.
Okay, so if as the committee you view these findings as serious, the question then is, given that seriousness, is this sanction sufficient for her to just simply apologize and to be reprimanded by the National Assembly? Of course, we know that the president has already taken action against her. I mean, this is a process that comes after there's a sanction from the side of the president. But given the seriousness of the findings, this is still a member of Parliament. There's a lot expected from her as a member of a public representative in Parliament. So is that sanction then sufficient?
Okay. Remember, after the finding of guilt, then the member gets the opportunity to place mitigating circumstances before the committee, and the registrar compiled a report on sanction and made certain recommendations. Now, the committee, by majority decision, and note that I stress majority decision, made the decision to impose or recommend the sanction that the committee did. Now, there was a minority view as well, which is very important to note. Initially, the recommendation was that this member be suspended from Parliament without pay for a certain period of parliamentary days. The committee decided against that. Now, you are quite correct. This is very serious. And the question does arise, does the recommended sanction fit the offence, the transgression? And I am of the opinion that a lot of people will again say that in this instance, the recommended sanction does not fit the transgression, and that will be justified. But fact remains, the majority of the committee members of the Ethics Committee accepted this specific recommendation in respect of sanction.
Okay, and maybe our viewers probably would be interested in the makeup of that committee. Do we know how the parties are represented there? Because then that would then explain how the committee voted in its majority.
Yes, and there are 8 political parties represented on the committee, and they were elected in terms of proportional representation. So some of the smaller parties are represented on the committee as well. So the makeup of the committee is ANC, DA, EFF, the Patriotic Front, or the PA rather, the MK, and BOSA.
And the majority of those parties are the ones who thought this sanction actually fits what she is being accused of.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Were there any mitigating factors? Because I would imagine in a process like that, the former minister would have also given mitigating factors just before then you deliberated and finalized on your findings.
Yes, basically there were three mitigating factors that were placed before the committee. First of all, she maintained that she was a first offender in respect of this specific transgression. Secondly, that she lost her position as a minister. The president released her from duties as a minister. And thirdly, that she has 2 children to maintain. So those were the mitigating circumstances and factors that she submitted.
Okay, Hendrik Britz, thank you so much for making time for us. The Ethics Committee co-chair, speaking to us about that finding against the former minister Nobuhle Nkabane. Let's bring in now Karabo Khakhau, who speaks on behalf of the Democratic Alliance. She's a member of parliament for the DA, but also a member of that Higher Education Portfolio Committee. Karabo, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement. Good evening to your viewers, and thank you so much for an opportunity to chat to you.
Yeah, so you launched this complaint against the former minister. Are you satisfied with this sanction?
Certainly not. Look, the ultimate goal was to get her removed from executive office, and we're happy that the pressure that we exuded was able to realize that. So we're glad that she's nowhere near any executive role, because she's very dangerous for any power, clearly, as she has proven. But the decisions of the executive arm of state are independent of those of the legislative arm of state. And so you would imagine that ethics would also maintain that even though this person has been fired as minister, that more than just saying askisa mzuri would follow suit for one, lying to parliament, which is quite frankly committing fraud and the misrepresentation of facts, and 2, breaching the code of conduct for ethical behavior for members of parliament, which quite frankly is a violation of the and constitutes the statutory offence of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament Act 4 of 2004. And this follows suit for all members of parliament and members of provincial legislatures across all 9 provinces, right? So ours as the Democratic Alliance has been achieved to the extent that 1, she's been removed from office, and that 2, that which we accused her guilty of has been found to be true, that she is guilty. Beyond the ethics finding, Clement, we also have the Hawks investigation that is investigating exactly the same charges that were placed before here. So we're very chuffed to see what happens when the Hawks come back with their findings on something that she's already been found guilty of.
Yeah, so the minister, from what the ethics committee says, is that this former minister seems to have laid the blame on one of her advisors, Mr. Solani. It seems like she blames him for dereliction of duty and for not informing her that the panel never convened to consider those applications. She doesn't seem to be taking any responsibility in this matter still.
Yeah, so Dr. Nkabane is notorious for throwing people under the bus and lying about who's been responsible for what. You would remember that the same panelist that he's referring to, the same advisor he's referring to, was Asisipo Solani, which she said had formed part of the panel that the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education discovered that actually never even existed altogether. What is clear from all of this is that she had neglected her duties as minister, because it is not an advisor that appoints SETA board chairpersons. It is the Minister of Higher Education that does that. What this also points out to is that this was a bigger problem than an Nkabane problem. It is an ANC cadre deployment problem, like we correctly outlined in the past. And it is seen in the nature of the people that sought to be appointed. It was the son of Ndata Gweta Matashe, the national chairperson of the ANC. You have the now serving Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, a plethora of ANC cadres from KwaZulu-Natal, where Nobuhle Nkabane comes from, her deployment turf altogether. All of them, Loyiso Masuku now of Johannesburg. And so there's a clear-cut understanding in anybody's brain that this whole thing was a cover-up of the ANC style of deployment with the sole purpose of sticking hands in cookie jars to loot as much as possible. And I say that deliberately because we have also seen recently, you would have probably seen the letter that I wrote to the chairperson of the portfolio committee requesting that there be an urgent meeting with the ETDP seated leadership with the Auditor General and the Minister currently now, Manamela, on how 637.6 million rands of South Africa's money got lost and missing in records without there being a trace for the AG. So there's a general culture of corruption within SETAs, which she was at the helm of administrating during her time.
Okay, but still on Mr. Solani, do we know if he himself accepts this responsibility that the minister was placing on him in this ethics committee? Because my understanding is that he's not necessarily happy with how he has been made the fall guy in the committee, and one wonders if he's going to eventually end up writing to Parliament.
I would love for Mr. Solani to come out and say if it is true, if it is not true, if Nobuhle Nkabane lied to Parliament's Ethics Committee too, for him to come out and say that no, she is throwing me under the bus. In fact, there is Luthuli House and a greater corporation beyond herself that is responsible for the appointments of these people, which follows the modus operandi of appointments in the ANC altogether, and it is not devoid of their culture. So I'm saying now to Ndatas Asisipo Solani, if he's watching now, if Dr. Nkabane lied to ethics about you and threw you under the bus and made you the sacrificial lamb, come out. Call her out for throwing you under the bus and let the Republic know.
Yeah, and Karabo, of course, before I let you go, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you this question as one of the communicators of the DA. There are questions being asked about additional payments made to some senior DA leaders who also serve in government. I'm sure you've seen reports that have revealed certain DA leaders receiving monthly top-up payments from the party on top of their official government salaries. Have your members declared these top-up salaries? Because Action SA has now filed complaints, not only with the Public Protector, but even with Parliament's Ethics Committee.
Sure. The first thing that we need to clarify is that the report that has been circulated across social media, its validity is being verified. It is being disputed, and so its verification is not one that is approved by everyone, simply because it carries the signature of a former member of the party. It never served before FedEx, the federal executive of the DA, neither did it serve either in the past before the Federal Finance Committee of the Democratic Alliance. So we can't really have chats about leaked documents that are not official documents of the party. What will be considered by FedEx later this month, however, is a document that contains undisputed content altogether. And once we have a document that we can all verify to be true, then we can have that chat.
But what's your policy, though, as the Democratic Alliance? The ministers that are, let's take John Steenhuisen, for instance, who's been the leader of the DA, but also serves in government. Does he receive a salary from the Democratic Alliance on top of what he receives in government?
So look, each and every political party has particular political offices that come with budgets that are specific to the execution of the roles of that office bearer. There's nothing weird about that. I'm sure even President Ramaphosa, as the president of the ANC, has a budget of the president of the ANC that manages his role as the president altogether. So whether or not the amounts are as circulated on social media, that is something that is yet to be confirmed. And the bottom line is each and every public representative of the Democratic Alliance that takes up extra job and extra work that, according to the Finance Committee, is worthy of compensation beyond the ordinary work that they do, it has the freedom to approach the party to request top-ups on that on that job, and it is judged on a case-to-case basis.
But the responsibility on those in government would be to declare those amounts. And I'm asking this because the Constitution states members of the executive may not undertake other paid work. So shouldn't these payments then be properly declared so that this is not in conflict with the rules governing members of the executive? So what I'm asking is, do you accept as the Democratic Alliance that if your members have gotten those top-up payments, they should have declared them?
So the distinction here would be, because, okay, look, the rules are clear. If you get money or you have extra sources of income, whether it is in kind or in actual cash, you must declare those things. That is standard rules for all parliamentarians. That is one. And so the distinction here should be a top-up of a salary or an office allocation for the execution of your duties, which are two distinctions that must be made. And until FedEx has been able to consider a valid report that carries a signature of a current federal finance chairperson that has been vetted by currently serving people within our offices, I can't have a chat with you on leaked information that is not verified.
All right, Karabo Khakhau, we'll chat to you, and then once FedEx has had a look at that report, because it's important to clarify where you draw the line then as a member of the executive. Also, what's interesting is that when President Cyril Ramaphosa had said that he also sometimes works in selling cattle, it was some of the parties like the Democratic Alliance who said, why are you receiving monies when you are already a member of the executive, and have you declared those? So those questions also still need to be asked to the Democratic Alliance. After the break, we speak to the EFF Secretary General, Marshal Dlamini. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. The Economic Freedom Fighters leader, Julius Malema, has hit out the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, saying he should not implicate him in the fights with police crime counter-intelligence head Feroz Khan. Malema was speaking at the party's National Voter Registration launch at Gandhi Square in Johannesburg. The EFF Secretary General is Marshal Dlamini, who joins us now in studio. Marshal, thank you so much for making time. Good evening.
Thank you, brother. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. So let's start with these comments by the EFF leader about Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. What exactly are you unhappy about in how he raised that matter of Feroz Khan?
No, look, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is a police commissioner in KZN. So he's a top cop, meaning that his responsibility is to enforce law. And through that, it's very simple, the principle of enforcing law as a police officer. One is to maintain public safety, is to investigate crimes, is to enforce law, is to arrest those that are found wanting. Now, he enters a space where he just makes unresponsible comments. He goes to the committee. They ask him about the relationship with the president of the EFF and Khan. He says, I know Khan, I know President Malema, and I was introduced to him by Khan, and then he keeps quiet. He can't do that. He's got a responsibility of explaining. How do you know it? What was the reason of that meeting? Why were you introduced there? But he further makes some irresponsible statements. When the lady of Action SA asked him that, do you know that Khan is involved with people that are involved in drug trafficking, in smuggling of drugs, illicit cigarettes and kidnapping? And then he says, yes, Mr. Malema is close to Khan, and it's a public knowledge that those people, Khan accompanied them to the EFF event. Yeah. So he's saying that people who are doing drugs were in the EFF event, people who are kidnappers were in the EFF event, and people who are committing crime in this country were in the EFF event, and those people are friends of Khan, who, by implication, he wants to put the president of the EFF there. That we cannot accept, because He's a law enforcer, he's not a commentator. Once he starts entering the space of just being a political commentator, then we're going to respond. And the president responds correctly to say, if he's honest and was genuine about not trying to cast doubts around the character of the president of the EFF, he should have told the committee that, yes, I met the president of the EFF through my own request that I made through Khan, that I want to explain to the president of the EFF, who said he's not happy about the progress on the AKA matter, that I'm handling it in KZN. And myself, I asked Khan to facilitate that meeting, and that meeting took place in Durban.
Okay.
And that was the essence of the meeting. But to just say, first you accuse Khan that is involved in criminality, and you bring the leader of the EFF and you hold it there, that's being mischievous.
Okay, let's just clarify then. Are you suggesting that it was General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi who asked General Khan to introduce him to the EFF leader, Julius Malema? So it wasn't the other way around, that the EFF leader wanted to meet with General Mkhwanazi? Because what I understood from Parliament is that the meeting between the EFF leader and General Mkhwanazi was facilitated by General Khan, and the EFF, General Mkhwanazi says, we didn't need Khan to facilitate that meeting. Julius Malema should have just gotten in touch with me directly.
No, it's the other way around. It's General Mkhwanazi, because the president of the EFF was in KZN and we were preparing for our manifesto. And then through his address, he said he's not happy with the progress on the issue of AKA murder. He was murdered in public view in Florida, and it looked like there's slow progress. And then General Mkhwanazi himself, through his colleague Khan, he said, organize a meeting, because you know the president of the EFF, so that I can come and explain. And that's why the meeting took place in Durban. So it was his own initiative to organize that meeting. It's not the other way around.
Okay.
And then when he doesn't explain that, then you leave it out on the character of the EFF president, and we cannot accept that.
Okay, and thanks for clarifying that, because, I mean, what I thought was happening was General Mkhwanazi was saying Khan is actually very close to politicians. And how I met the EFF leader was actually through Khan. But thank you for clarifying that it's that other way around. Yes. So does the EFF believe that General Mkhwanazi then is using Julius Malema's name in the fight with General Khan? That seemed to be the suggestion from Julius Malema.
No, that's what we're saying, that he can't utter irresponsible statements. That's why I'm saying his responsibility, his job, that is doing as a top cop of KZN, we expect him to be a law enforcer, not to be a commentator, because if he's just going to utter statements like the one that he has said, that in the EFF it's a public knowledge that criminals were invited in the EFF gathering, and he leaves it like that, that's irresponsible of him. He can't. He's a law enforcer, and part of enforcing the law, it means he must work with facts and evidence, and then he must go and enforce the law. He can't be just a social commentator, because then he's inviting us to a space and we're going to respond to him. And that's why we're saying what he's doing, it's irresponsible and it's reckless. He can't do that. When he called that press conference, all of us, we supported him. And the EFF are the ones that went to Parliament to say, let's establish this committee. Because it was not just an ordinary civilian who made those allegations. It was a man given a responsibility to make sure that this country is safe, is responsible for the entire province. So when he makes those allegations, that's why we said he must be supported, so that there must be an establishment of an ad hoc committee so that he can come and explain. He comes and explains, then he makes allegations, accusations that he doesn't provide any evidence, and casts aspersions to the leadership and the president of the EFF, and we must sit and fold our arms, and we can never do that.
Is the president of the EFF close to General Khan?
The president of the EFF knows General Khan, and maybe it's something that we must clarify, because we asked the president of the EFF that, okay, General Khan was in our 10th anniversary. Do you know General Khan? He said, yes, I've known General Khan since I was the president of the Youth League, and then it ends there. There's nothing else that we have to deal with. The issue is that here is a man with so much responsibility that he must come and help all of us, as people of this country that are worried that the law enforcement agents have been taken over by criminals in this country. And through his articulations, he says members of parliament are involved, the judiciary is involved, and everyone else is involved. And instead of coming out clear and saying this member of parliament or the EFF president he's involved on doing 1, 2. He doesn't. He just say, I know him because he introduced me and he keeps there. So society must do the guesswork now. And then we leave the president of the EFF with that suspicion that he's involved in some criminal activities with the police. That it cannot be correct. He had all the space. He was in parliament twice. Could have said that Mr. Malema, you are involved in corrupt or criminal activities together with Khan, and he's never done that. So he can't speak in coded terms.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen that there's been backlash from some people who have clearly taken offense to what they describe as attacks on General Mkhwanazi. How do you respond to some of your members who may have thought the CIC has gone too far?
No, he was not attacking. Mkhwanazi was never attacked. The president responded on what he said. That's a debate. Mkhwanazi started a debate. Now, this is no longer investigation. This is no longer law enforcement. It's a debate. Once we start a debate, we've got a right to respond. So he has entered that space of debating. So we're going to debate him back. He makes those unfounded allegations, just speaking without taking any responsibility, and we're not going to sit back and accept that. So the president of the EFF was correct to clarify that issue, because if he didn't, we'd be sitting here, all of us, even yourself as a journalist, you got the information wrong. You'd be sitting here and thinking that the president of the EFF is meeting some generals and getting involved in some criminal activities. We had to clarify that, and we're challenging Mkhwanazi that if we think the president of the EFF is wrong what he's saying, he's a law enforcer, is the constitution and the laws of this country, they give him the powers to make sure that he investigates and then he makes arrests if there's such. But we know there's no such. He's entered in a space where maybe he gets agitated by people on social media, where he becomes a commentator, and he can't be a commentator. He must stick to being just a law enforcer, and then we respect him for that. But when he starts commentating and making regular statements, that we have to respond to.
For those that may be confused, though, where does this leave your support for General Mkhwanazi? I mean, he's not the enemy of the EFF, is he?
No, he's not the enemy of the EFF. By the way, remember, we support General Mkhwanazi, but more than anything, we support that office. That's a public office. That's our office that is occupied by him. He will get our support as long as he sticks to what he's employed to do, to be a policeman who enforces laws. Once he starts getting into other debates and saying things that are unfounded, look at this explanation when the DSG asked him that, General, part of your July 6 allegations, you said the judiciary is involved in these criminal activities of infiltrating the law enforcement agency. We're finishing this, the ad hoc committee now, and there's no member of the judiciary that has been brought here. Himself, he says, yes, I might not have the evidence, but the information that I have is that some of the people that we arrested for murder, they get bail, and then they go and work with prosecutors, then they give money to the prosecutors, and then that's why then we believe that the judiciary is involved. He can't believe, he can't think he's a law enforcer. He must go and get facts, get evidence, and then move in that way. If he's just going to sit like ordinary civilian and make those allegations, then it's very dangerous. Unfortunately, the office that he occupies doesn't give him that luxury of just making statements without any substantive evidence, or to follow up and making sure that they are arrested in criminality. Unfortunately, not for him. Me and you, maybe we can do it, but not him.
Okay,
can't do that.
but will they call each other? I mean, they've got each other's numbers to just put this to bed and clarify it?
No, there's no need to do that.
There seems to be a misunderstanding.
No, it's not personal. The president has responded to say what you are doing is wrong. And there's someone who's responsible, and we still respect him, and we want him to continue doing his work. But he must know that in the EFF, we respect logic, we respect substance, not fantasy and just waffling.
Okay.
So he must go back to his office, discipline himself, and make sure that he does what he's employed to do to enforce the law.
How satisfied are you as the EFF about the work of the ad hoc committee? Do you think it has helped uncover a lot in as far as the allegations made by General Mkhwanazi are concerned?
No. We think the committee and the parliamentarians, they've done what they could, and at least were exposed on various issues on what takes place behind the scenes in the law enforcement agents, especially in the police, where people are fighting for positions, fighting for different factions and trying others to be politicians and all those And I think it's something that we needed to know about it. And the parliamentarians there, they have to take a decision of how do we reorganize the entire police force to make sure that it's not used for personal grudges amongst each other. It's used for what it's supposed to do to protect the citizens of this country.
All right. Marshal Dlamini, thank you so much for speaking to us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the break. In fact, before we go to break, Botha Sikau building in Mthatha, in fact, this is breaking news coming in. That building is on fire. The building, there are actually several houses there, several government departments as well. So there are firefighters and police that are on the scene. Late Night Edition will bring you the full coverage of what's currently taking place in that part of the Eastern Cape at 9 p.m. We'll be back after the break. All right, welcome back. The question we've been asking you tonight on Face the Nation is Minister Nkabane's punishment fitting considering her transgressions, and does President Cyril Ramaphosa's prior action against her somehow change your view? Your tweets have come through at Face the Nation SABC. Siabulela says, good evening to you and the viewers at home. That's great, but only consistency can prove him a capable leader, while the likes of Mkhunu and many others are still at large. Small fishes won't count much in repairing the wrongs he's allowed to continue in during his tenure. Rabatata says, good evening. The punishment meted out to the minister is lenient. She has been fired because she lied to Parliament. The president is lenient to his comrades in Parliament. Clement, I'm with you. Keep on probing for those answers. Dennis says, why does the ANC continue to utilize her in a parliamentary capacity when she was fired and subsequently found guilty of ethical breaches by Parliament? The ANC is taking us for a ride. And that's precisely the question, right, that will go to the ANC, because she's now the deputy chief whip. But again, their explanation may be that there's already action that's been taken. The president fired her, but also she is going to apologize and she's going to be reprimanded by the National Assembly. Let's wrap up with this story now. A leaked Democratic Alliance report has uncovered that the party is paying more than 60,000 rand per month for its mayoral candidate in Tshwane, Cilliers Brink, to stay put. The document appears to bear the signature of the party's former federal finance chair, Dion George, listing names of party leaders getting special salary top-ups. Joining us now is the ANC Tshwane caucus leader, Joel Masilela Kamahlangu, to chat to us about what they want to see happen now with Cilliers Brink. Joel, thank you so much for making time. Good evening.
Good evening to you and the listeners at home.
Yeah. So
thank you.
What are you expecting from Cilliers Brink? I see you've written a letter now. Do you want him now to come out and say whether or not these top-ups have been declared?
No, definitely that is what we want. But the information that is before us is that Cilliers Brink has not declared the 60,000 that he's getting as a top-up. For him to continue to be notorious in the greater city of Tshwane, it's an attempt by the DA to try and get themselves being more relevant when they know exactly that they've lost confidence of the residents of Tshwane with their dismal performance over the last 8 years. So when we get to council on Thursday, we will be asking those difficult questions as the ANC, that you cannot have a person like Brink, or even the DA for that matter, speaking about accountability when it is facing the other political parties. When it comes to their own political party, they've got ways of hiding things. And we are saying that the ANC is transparent. Whatever it is that they find that is wrong, the ANC is always objective in ensuring that within its file and ranks exposes corruption. It's very funny that today we have a person like Cilliers Brink over the years that he has been receiving the top-up of over 60,000 without him declaring it. So we are going to gun for him through council processes in ensuring that he's held accountable. Not only him, but also administrators that would have been hired by them that have brought the city into the financial mess that we are now bearing the responsibility of fixing.
Yeah. What's your understanding of what the Constitution says, Joel, as far as these declarations are concerned? And I'm asking this because I'm trying to figure out, maybe from the ANC's perspective as well, do you have any top-ups in your political party? And if there's money, for instance, as the caucus leader of the ANC, if you work for the Tshwane government, but you're also leading the organization in Tshwane, do you get paid for that? Is there budget dedicated to your office? And is that considered then as a top-up? I'm asking that question because I asked the DA spokesperson, Karabo Khakhau, how they determine it. And she seems to suggest that it's not necessarily a salary, but it's a budget that's dedicated to the office that is being led by that person who may also be a member of the executive.
But then obviously, let's come in. With the DA, what happened is that they speak of a code of ethics or code of conduct of councillors. All of us know in the Systems and Structures Act, it is quite explicit what is expected of a councillor. Any gift that a councillor would get, there is an expectation that that particular councillor should be able to declare those interests. And every year, we are asked through the city manager's office to make a submission of a different interests that councillors may be having outside of their responsibilities or even being with the city. So in this instance, whether it is budgeted by the political party or not, that is an additional income that Cilliers Brink is receiving, and that is supposed to have been declared. Because clearly, the conflict is this one, is that the same person is made to receive additional funds for him to remain in the city of Tshwane. So it is a difference between what he earns or any councillor earns, as well as the amount that he was earning when he was executive mayor. So that difference is around 60,000. So he is being paid the shortfall since he left office as an executive mayor in September, October of 2024. So that income was supposed to have been declared. And since it hasn't, we are then pursuing him.
Okay, Joel, I'm out of time, but I think we've got the point. Thank you so much for coming through. Let's see how he will be responding to that. He did send us a statement to indicate that he's declared all of his income to the Municipal Council in terms of the law. Thank you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.